Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome to my card for the July challenge. I'm creating these yummy cupcakes. I have these candy sprinkles that are the coolest things. They come in a whole rainbow of colors. I'm using some embossing paste and also this birthday circle die by Simon Says Stamp. So I'm going to take the cupcake die and I'm going to cut the tops out of some Neenah cardstock. And then I'm going to take my palette knife and my embossing paste and I'm going to ice the tops of these cupcakes. So I usually get the paste on the back of my palette knife and that makes it easier to spread. So I'm just going to basically do it as if I was icing a real cupcake. Just make sure you kind of get the clean edges. Now once you kind of get to the corner where your finger is, you'll have to flip it over and just hold it on the sides. But it's pretty easy to grab. I didn't have any trouble doing this. And so once I get all of my paste on here, I'm going to smooth it out a little bit on the top, but it doesn't really matter how much texture you have because you're going to cover it with the sprinkles anyway. So I'm going to put this down on my craft mat carefully, and then I'll grab my first sprinkles that I'm going to use. This is the pink ones, and it just comes kind of in a Tic Tac box, and they just sprinkle right out, and they're made of plastic, and they're beveled, so they're really cool sprinkles. And so I'm going to cover as much as I can onto the paste, and then they're not that hard to pick up off the craft mat. You can also pick them up with tweezers or maybe a pick-me-up stick, but I was pretty much able to pick them up with my fingers and kind of add them to the places that they didn't stick to initially when I sprinkled them out. So once I get them placed, I'm just going to press them down and kind of smush them into the embossing paste to secure them in place. And just make sure I don't have any hanging off the edges. And it will stick to the embossing paste, so I just had to kind of pull some of those extra ones away. And you can reuse them. I put them back in the container and push that off to the side. And I'm going to do 3 more of these the exact same way. So I have yellow, green, and then blue. So I'm going to fast forward since I did all of these the same. This is the final one, my yellow. And now I'm going to work on the background piece, and I have 3 Distress Oxide inks that I'm working with. I'm using Fossilized Amber, Broken China, and Worn Lipstick. And you can see I'm fast forwarding this quite a bit. I have a large piece of Canson XL Mixed Media paper. And the reason why is because I'm going to cut this up into a bunch of different pieces and then sort of figure out which pieces are going to go where. So I'm kind of doing it randomly. And this, when you add the blue, it'll mix to make green. And so that's how I'm getting my green, is mixing the blue and the yellow together. But when you do the blue and the pink together, it comes out to be a pretty dark purple. So I'm trying not to overlap these colors too much, because when they mix, it gets to be pretty dark. So anyway, I'm just kind of going back and forth in random areas. I think my whole sheet is probably like 5 or 6 inches by 7 inches, something like that. Next, I'm going to spritz my paper with a pretty generous amount of water. It's puddling up just a little bit, but I'm not going to touch it, I'm not going to brush it, I'm not going to move my paper. I'm just going to sort of let it sit for a minute or two, and then I'm going to take my heat tool and I'm going to fast forward this quite a bit so you can see what the end result is. But you get some really pretty water stains just by spraying the water on there and letting it dry. So now I'm going to work on the bottom of the cupcakes. So I have some chocolate chip cardstock by Stampin' Up, and I'm going to die cut the bottom portion of this cupcake. And then I have Hero Arts craft cardstock, which I don't use very often because it's kind of a thin cardstock. It's not my favorite craft, but it's a little bit darker than most of the other crafts. Like, it's darker than the crumb cake, and I wanted that color. So I'm going to put some 2-way glue on the back of my chocolate chip piece, and I'm going to glue it to my Hero Arts craft. And that's because I wanted the insides of the cupcake wrapper lines to be this craft color. And you can see I kind of hung it off the edge just enough to have a little bit of craft to adhere my icing to, but it doesn't need to be the full cupcake. So I'm going to cut around this, and this will allow me to get that Hero Arts craft background in between the lines of my cupcake liner. So I'm going to cut all of these out, and then I'll use some Tombow Mono multi-glue. You just need a little bit in the middle. And I'm going to place my icing on top of all 4 of these, and it fits right into the groove of the die cut because this was one full die cut. And so I'm going to do that with all 4 of these. Now I've cut my watercolor piece into several 1 3/4 by 2 inch pieces, and I just cut them randomly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to match them up so that I get a one that's mostly pink behind the pink, mostly yellow behind the yellow, and so on. And so I noticed that this pink one, I think I wanted a little bit more pink, so I grabbed my worn lipstick, and this is where I would have just left the whole thing as is and skipped this whole next part that I'm going to do. But I took my worn lipstick and I added a little bit more pink. Now when you layer these colors, they're going to get darker, and you're going to lose a little bit of the water unless you want to add a little bit more of the water staining. And then I added a little bit of the pink thinking, well, I'll just kind of have some pink running into the next box. But when I did that, it really darkened it up and I got some purple. And so this one I disliked so much that I actually discarded it and got a brand new one. You can see I'm sort of thinking about it right here. It's just too dark. So I actually would have preferred, you see how much lighter and cheerful this other one is when you don't add that second layer. So I went with that, and the only other change I made was to add some green to the green one because I didn't use any green and I didn't get a lot of it with the green with the yellow and blue combos. So I just added some cracked pistachio to this one. And again, it kind of darkened it up. Wish I wouldn't have done that, but I kind of ran out of pieces that were light colored. So I just left this one as is. And so anyway, here's my set. And what I'm going to do is adhere this to some Nina Solar white cardstock. This cardstock is 3 inches by 4 1/4, and it's big enough to have sort of a little bit of a white trim around each of these boxes. So I'm going to put my ATG tape runner right at the very edge of all the pieces and sort of eyeball it. Now you could go and measure and make sure that they're all exact, but I sort of just placed them all down without pressing too hard, and then I secured them all in place when I felt like they were all in the right spot. All right, so this is what my final piece looks like. And I'm going to adhere this to that same Hero Arts craft cardstock that's just folded in A2 size. I'm just going to make sure the top, the left, and the right are all equidistant and just press that down. And then for my sentiment, I'm going to use this more sketchy banner, greetings, happy birthday. So I'm going to ink that up with some Versamark ink and sprinkle it with some white embossing powder and then heat that to set it. And then I'll add my cupcakes, and I'm just going to put some Tombow glue on the back. I'm not going to get too close to the edge because I don't want it seeping out the sides. I'm just going to do this on all 4 of the cupcakes and just press them down lightly. The sprinkles are pretty secure in place. They're not really going anywhere. This is the Monster Fun set by Gerda Steiner Designs. It just had the perfect size cupcake. I'm going to decorate the inside. I'm getting my sentiment from this Hero Arts really old cupcake set, and I'm going to stamp that with some Memento Tuxedo black ink. And then I'll take some BG11, BG13 on this cupcake, and I'm going to color kind of underneath all of these icing lines with the darker color because you'll get a shadow kind of as the icing overlaps. And then I'm just going to take my BG11, I'm doing a really simple color here, I'm just color the whole entire thing, and that'll blend my BG13 and color all the white areas. And then for the cupcake liner, I'm doing E44 just around the edges, move in a little bit more with the E43, and then finally blend everything with the E40. And I'm also going to use this E40 to add a little bit of a table underneath the cupcake, just so it's grounded. I don't know if you can see, but I went over the lines with the BG13 a little bit. So to fix that, I'm going to take my Zero Colorless blender, and I'm going to show you this in real time. And what I'm going to do is just go back and forth with my brush tip carefully. And what the colorless blender is going to do is push the color out of the way. So it doesn't actually blend, it actually pushes color. So what I'm doing here is I'm pushing the color back over the black line, and it actually works great to do this. And so you can fix any mistakes that you make. So I'm going to adhere this to the inside with some HED tape runner, and then that will be the finished card. I really love these sprinkles. I feel like I've been searching my entire craft life for sprinkles, and so when I saw them, I immediately had to get them. So they're really fun to use, and I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.